Hello and welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta, and today I am joined by Lisa. So, Lisa, how do you deal when the shit gets real? Or just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Maybe I'll do a little bit of both because it's always hard for me to choose. Also, I love that question, how to deal when the shit gets real. And all I can think of, I don't know if you've seen the meme or the real audio where it's like, are you going to cry about it or are you going to boss up? And her answer is, first of all, I'm going to do both. So that in a nutshell is how I deal when the shit gets real. Yeah, I'm probably going to freak out and or cry and or maybe stress eat, but then I'm also going to like pull up my pants and go for it and make things happen and problem solve. And to answer, who I am basically, oh my gosh, there's so many answers to that, but the combination of it, the culmination of it is I'm a productivity coach, a wife, a mom, kids and cats, and someone who has survived being a caregiver and who has dealt with survival mode and dealt with overwhelm. And it has driven me to help other humans who are overwhelmed realize that there's a better way to ditch the hustle culture, to care for themselves. My coaching centers on energy and capacity and compassion because I think we need so much of it now, so much more than ever. And at its
Absolutely.
heart, right, I just want to focus on what we can actually do in this moment, what we do best, and live a more satisfying life. And I'm all about doing that for myself and helping others do it as well.
I love all those things. And I'm going to focus on the least important right now because I have to. So, as a fellow cat mom, I need
Yes.
to know just generally about your kitty cats. Just, of
Naturally, of course you do. Yes,
course, I
so
do.
I have two of them. They're litter mates. And even though we
Mm.
don't know for sure, we also know for sure that Cleo, our tuxedo, is definitely the older sister. And my
Okay.
Cosmo girl, who is a black cat in pure love, is definitely the younger sister. And they are 13 years old and they are
Aw.
chonkas and they are awesome. And I love them dearly. And they are part of like my own joy list of an iced coffee, a good book, and at least one of them
Well,
trapping me, right? Because
absolutely.
do you have the same rule in your house where if you are trapped under the cat, then other people have to do things and get things for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a chunk too. He's an orange. He's not very like sit on your lap, but I have a tuxedo as well. And
Okay. What are their names?
I don't know about your tuxedo, but um all those memes that you see about tuxedos, my cat fits those to the T, like the meow
Same.
all the time,
Yes.
the awkward behavior. They're so strange, but he cracks us up. So my chunk, my fat orange tabby, is he's an orange tabby. His name is Lilo because I saved him in Hawaii. And then I have Tosh is
Nice.
is the black
Yeah,
lady.
I used to have orange cats, so I have that experience. But yeah, I would agree the tuxedo. She owns the joint. She's our bouncer for sure.
Anybody out there that doesn't have a tuxedo, seriously consider if you're ready for the craziness. They'll make you laugh your butt off, but
Mhm.
they're a little out there.
True. True story.
But we're gonna get back on track now. Sorry, y'all. I had to ask the kitty cat question because we need
It's
to
an
know about the kitty
important
cats.
side
It's
tangent for sure.
it's an important, absolutely for sure. So one thing that I loved about your bio is of course, you talked about being a caregiver and how you fell into that role. So I'd love to hear you talk about wherever you want to start the story from, what it was like being a caregiver and just that journey that you had to go on.
Okay, so you know, early on we knew something was going on with my mom and had always said to her, our home will be your home when you're ready. And I'm so glad that we did that because we were able to give her some amazing golden years. And I always give my husband extra credit for being so open to doing that as well. So
Of course.
we moved her in actually when I was pregnant with my first child. And then I had a second pregnancy during the time in which I cared for her. So I, I sometimes forget to qualify that I am a sandwich caregiver, which made the situation very unique. Uh, it started slowly, and I think that's something I like to mention. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I do like to mention things about Alzheimer's and dementia, and Alzheimer's specifically. should be a slow progressing disease. So it wasn't like we knew something was going on immediately, but we could sense that there was a cognitive decline. And we kept taking her to doctors, and just my whole, like, caregiving mode of just having my mom living with us, and her being elderly and wanting to make sure she was taken care of. So we went to a neurologist, among other things, and we kept going back. And I can remember the time when he would say, it was advanced dementia, and, the cognitive decline was there. And I remember saying to him, but it's not Alzheimer's though, right? And he said, oh, it is. And I was so startled, but I even though I was stunned, I think there was kind of a relief because it gave a name to what I knew was something very serious that I couldn't quite pinpoint. And it
Yeah.
gave me the direction, right, to research and to say, this is what it is. And that helps you find the help and support you need. It gave me a category to give me a better direction to go.
That makes sense. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but
Mm.
just maybe to clear up some confusion for listeners or anybody out there, is there a difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
I think it's a form of, because
A
then you
form
also
of.
have like Lewy bodies, and you have vascular dementia, and you have a lot of different causes of dementia, which is essentially, and again, this is approximate, please go double check my work. But it's, cognitive decline of a sort. And so it's a specific kind.
Got it.
So,
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
so basically I spent just shy of 5 years caring for, at one point in time, an infant, a toddler, and my mom with advancing Alzheimer's. And
So almost like having an infant and two toddlers in a sense.
yeah, that is very accurate, because there was sundowning, there was, which, for those who don't know, nighttime or evening, I should say, from dusk when the sun goes down, they tend to get more agitated. So there was a time in which I'm trying to put kids to bed, and I'm trying to clean up her room because she's trashing it and things like that. There was a lot happening all at once. And sometimes I talk about it like, oh, who went through that? Like, I can't even believe I did. But, you find a way. And I've learned so many lessons. And I'm grateful for it in that I've taken those lessons and I've used those to help other people, and not even people who are necessarily in the same kind of caregiver mode. But I've taken those lessons of saying we have to do things differently. We can't keep pushing ourselves and feeling obligated to be a certain way, to do certain things just because other people say so, to be obligated to be, quote, productive and organized. I mean, I had to let it all go. It was extremely vulnerable, but in a way, it changed me enough that I could see that there is a better way.
No, that totally makes sense. And I also relate with you saying that getting the diagnosis was helpful in a way because it does give you some answers.
Mhm.
Um, but also going down that road, and you did touch on this just a little bit. What was it like receiving that diagnosis, both for you and your mom? I obviously understand you can only speak to your mom to an extent.
I was thinking about what it must have been like for her, and I'm not 100% sure that she took it in completely. And I don't know if part of that was the fact that I looked to protect her a lot in saying, there's something going on with your mind. And I don't know if she even took that information in. So I not only can't speak for her, not only because she wasn't able to tell me and she's no longer here to tell me, but also because I don't think that that was her focus. I knew that she was frustrated, and I knew that we had challenges, but I tried to focus on what we could do. And for me, like I said, it was this combination of being absolutely stunned and like, am I really here? Is this really happening? But then giving me a direction. So it really does go back to that tongue in cheek reply that I had earlier about, cry about it and then boss up. And
Yeah.
I did cry about it, and I did feel like it was like a kick to the gut. To hear the word Alzheimer's is so intimidating.
Mhm.
and then to read about it. And then, of course, you don't go on WebMD ever. Right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like just find ways to like freak yourself out. And then of course at the time I also felt so alone. I'm really happy to see that there's a lot more in the way of like resources and like groups and things like that, support groups. There
Yeah.
wasn't so much at the time. And I also couldn't find other people like me in the sandwich caregiver mode. It was very unique. I was going to like Alzheimer's conferences and things like that with one of my kids in a carriage. You know what I mean? It's like it was very unusual. So, yeah, I was stunned. I was devastated. And then I just said, okay, now what? And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other.
I mean, that's all we can really do, right? I mean,
Exactly.
we don't know what each day is gonna look like.
No.
But what is some advice that you would give to somebody that maybe is currently in a caregiving situation or might be having to deal with it soon?
Yeah. So many things. So I'll just I'll just share as I'm thinking of it. Okay. So first and foremost, you need to know you're amazing and you're doing the impossible. We could do period full stop because this is like nothing else. And those who walk in caregiver shoes understand each other. As soon as I meet another caregiver, we have this immediate understanding, like no one else. The trauma and the grief, all of the complexities of it, the beauty of it, and the horror of it, all of it. So you're incredible, and you're literally doing the impossible. So take that with you, no matter what. Good days, bad days, everything, all the questioning. That's so important to start with. Also, it's really important to know that you are not less of a caregiver when you stop to take care of you. You have to. You have to. And this is critical because we often lose ourselves when we are in caregiver mode and we are focused, and especially when so much extra is piled on us that we're trying to figure out. We're not only being a caregiver to someone else in terms of taking care of them, we are also dealing with a significant learning curve a lot of times. Because this isn't something like, "Oh, yeah, no, I had that training manual, back in '97." Like, no, we have no idea what we're coming into, and we're figuring it out on the fly. And then we're dealing with another human and sometimes a really challenging one. So, it's so important that we take time for us, and it doesn't make you less of a caregiver to me. I think it can make you a better one. Um, on a practical side, I highly, highly recommend having some kind of notebook, or I mean, it can be digital, it can be paper, whatever makes you happy, to keep daily notes, to track not only how they're doing, but how you're doing. Track what's happening and help help yourself remember, not only for practical reasons like doctor's visits and things like that, where it's like, what happened? What were they like? What was going on? What did they take? What did they try? What kind of side effects? All of that practical stuff, but also the behavioral stuff. I learned a lot from a behavioral neurologist back when I was caring for my mom. And a lot of the conversations surrounding that, especially in my support groups, reminded me like how to take the information that was given me that I would normally respond to it differently. And now I had to learn how to respond to it as a caregiver. And I'll never forget, Stuart was one of the facilitators who said to me, "Do you want to be right or do you want to be sane?" And that was a life lesson I took with me to this day. And that
I
counts
actually
for,
remember
right?
hearing something very similar, and actually
Okay.
it came from Dr. Phil. I'm not like a number 1 fan, but he said something very similar that says, "Do you wanna be right or do you wanna be happy?"
Yeah. Same
So,
idea, right? And
same
so
idea.
it's what are you going to let go, pick your battles, that sort of thing. But yeah, if you keep track of things, if you have a notebook that's dedicated and daily, just write things, it's almost like journaling meets documenting. It's going to be incredible for having the right information and not having to recall it. And that's like my productivity side. But I did this. I did this for my children too, and it was really helpful. But also, it gives you reassurance as to all that you've done and eventually can offer you documented evidence that you can appreciate for all you've done.
Yeah. No, I think I love that. I think that's fantastic advice, especially as somebody that likes to write anyway. Um, I love that. And it just, I mean, it makes sense because we know we can't remember everything. And the Lord knows that a doctor or even just a friend might ask you a random question and you can be like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, on May 4th that happened.
Right. Yeah. And it's so easy to forget. I mean, in a normal circumstance, it's easy to forget. And what I know now, having studied everything that I have, I've studied, a stress management certification now and all that kind of stuff. And I understand how difficult it is for us to focus mentally when we're in stress response. And being a caregiver has a baseline stress response already that doesn't go away. And then as you add on to that, depending upon what's happening, how they're acting, how they're feeling, what's going on with the rest of your life. Like it's just multiple levels of stress. How you're going to remember that even on a good day is beyond me. So yeah, documenting as much as you can really will help. And it is interesting to me to kind of see it not only from the practical standpoint, but also sort of the emotional and a self-appreciative standpoint as well.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it totally makes sense. And since you're talking about stress, I'm sure your life was not only stressful, but probably very chaotic having little ones and having your mom and your husband and trying to balance being a wife and being a mom and being a caregiver and being all these things. So, how did you find balance among all this chaos, or did that just end up coming way later?
I feel like I did it in a sort of sliding scale because, to be honest, there was some elements of it that just couldn't come, and that's understanding the season of life that you're in where there's constant demands. I would say the balance probably came from the fact that there were sort of demands. Let me see if I can explain this better. My kids needed me. So I had to get up and show up for them. I couldn't stop, right? So my mom needed me. My kids needed me. I showed up for them. And then eventually my body was screaming at me. So I was like, oh, I got to take care of that too. So it was a little bit more of the bouncing around, urgent putting out fires kind of thing. And that's something that I work really hard not to do now and to guide others and coach others to not do as much as we're able. Sometimes life just has seasons of urgency, but for as much as we can and where we have the choice, we try to avoid that. So I would say, honestly, realistically, that was a lot of it. I would also say that I like to use the word harmony instead of balance because balance indicates that there can be evenness and there rarely can be. And especially in that season of life, I knew there wasn't, but harmony means that things work together and that you're honoring each piece of you. And that's what I would do on a sliding scale. And it was one of the first sort of clues that I had that you can kind of, if you shrink things down and then you expand them when you can, um, you'll still touch upon the things that you need. And it sounds kind of funny, but you know, I did go to the doctor when I could. Was it enough? Not always, but I tried. I did, got my hair done. I had treats. If someone could help me out and could watch her, I would accept that help. At first, it was very humbling, but eventually I'm like, no, I need this. And sometimes, as funny as it sounds, taking a moment, a few minutes by myself, if I could, I would like to thank Donkey's drive-through because sometimes I would have 2 kids and my mom in the car, but they were all safe, and I would go through the Donkey's drive-through. And then we would get home, and I would settle everybody in, and I would hide away for, like, 5 minutes. And still to this day, I have sort of a positive trigger with drinking iced coffee from Donkey's, like, just having that sip and, like, that immediate calm. Sometimes that was all I could do, but those moments of calm matter, so take them where you can. And then as I had more time, more resources, more control once she passed and it was the kids only, which sounds crazy to be like, that felt so much easier. Of course it did, right? Then I learned, oh, now I can expand upon these things. But life still gets active and I still use those same principles.
Yeah, one thing I did, again, I read in your bio and I found really fascinating was you talked about like once your mom did pass away and you were able to look around, it was kind of like this big fallout. So was that like a moment of like, oh my God, like panic, or was it more like, okay, it's time to get ish together?
I think it was a little bit more of the latter. And I can remember thinking, I got to get back to business, right? I got to get back to what I was doing. And then I was like, oh, and then it was a slight panic because I was like, it literally looked like fallout. Like I had bins and bins of paperwork that I hadn't touched because I'd let it go. Again, I took care of the most of the essentials that I could. I let go of every non-essential. And then sometimes, there was something where that kind of was essential, but I had to let it go. I'm one person. But then I thought, wait, take a moment. Instead of just jumping right back into the fray, take a minute, take a breather, and clean this up. And I'm so glad that I did, because that process of cleaning and decluttering and processing everything, and processing, especially when it comes to clutter, is also part of grieving. It all kind of blends together. And when I did that, that took me on the road to, oh, maybe I don't have to go back, but I can go forward differently. And I'm glad I did.
I mean, that's all we can do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we can't go backwards as much as sometimes we wish that we could. So all we can do is take what we've learned forward.
Yeah. And then if you can help others with it, even better. Whatever gives you meaning, whatever helps you process and move forward. And that's definitely, it's always been my MO. Like when I figure something out, I want to share it with others. So this has been a wonderful journey in that regard. But yeah, it was definitely a fallout. And it was me having a choice in that moment to just sort of, basically clean up and jump back into what I was doing, or try to think differently about it and really give myself a fresh start.
Yeah. And since you mentioned sharing things with others, and it's something that I know I myself am dealing with right now, and I'm sure others are,
Mm,
is anticipatory grief. So my dad was diagnosed with ALS, and I
mm,
know right now I feel like I'm in the thick of the anticipatory grief.
yeah.
Um, so what is something that you would tell somebody like me that might be dealing with anticipatory grief?
First of all, that is so real. And if you're feeling it, my heart goes out to you, and I can understand it. And in thinking about how to approach this, I'm actually going to share some advice that my sister-in-law gave me years ago about autism, actually.
Oh,
And
okay.
she had said, when you meet one child with autism, you meet one child with autism. And her point was that you can't compare. It's a very singular thing. It's like an N equals one research experiment, right? Single participant. So it's kind of saying, and if you use this principle with caregiving, if you use this principle with any disease that someone has, whatever you're going through, you have clues and things to watch for. You have documented things that happen. Same thing like when you get medication and there's the potential side effects, but you may never have any of those. Because you do not know, that gives you the permission to be open to seeing what will happen for you. And it's natural to anticipate, but I think being present and not trying to look too far ahead, and almost distracting yourself in the present moments. Now, yes, there's some elements, I would say, of like carpe diem and maximizing what you can in this time, but you also don't want to get yourself in that energy of so much carpe diem that you're not allowing for some some expansion, if you will, into future days. But at the same time, I think the more that you're able to practice mindfulness and being present, and or at least catching yourself when you find yourself anticipating and thinking ahead, and say, but that's not, even if that does happen, which I don't know, that's not yet. That's a not yet. So what's a now? And then that's where practices like grounding and being mindful can really help. So that would be my advice.
So do you have I always love finding new ways to be mindful and stuff. So do you have like podcasts that you enjoy or YouTube videos that you enjoy or books were in that mindfulness sphere?
So, um, anything related to positive psychology, which is something that I've studied, and I realized that it was like reverse engineering how I act as a coach, and I was like, oh, I'm into positive psychology. So if you look for those terms, positive psychology practices, you'll find them. So like Robert Emmons is a big name. Barbara Fredrickson is a big name in that. And but specifically, I'm bringing this up because that's how I learned why one of my favorite practices is so important, and that's gratitude practice. And again, those same names come up with that. Uh, I honestly poke around for like, I mean, I do like them as resources. Sean Acor is another one. I have a gratitude practice, like a workbook and stuff like that, that I provide to people. And it was so odd in the very beginning. I'm like, I'm a productivity coach, but I'm talking about gratitude. What's the connection here? And I was like, but I know it's important. I knew that it was part of my healing journey. And so I connected with all of those resources. But honestly, hopping on YouTube and finding someone that resonates. I'm going to be working on some more like um, guided meditations and things like that. I have on my podcast, I actually have some mindfulness episodes and things like that. So there's a lot of different resources. I don't have just one. I usually recommend that people poke around and find like what resonates with them, either whether it's a person that they trust, that they like hearing from about it, if they like to listen to audio versus maybe reading a blog. But I would start with some of those like researchers that really know their stuff, and anything that connects back to positive psychology will give you, I think, stronger results.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We all have different wavelengths on what we like, and it's good to find what works best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you perfectly segued yourself into your podcast because not only is positive in the name of your podcast, but you also mentioned it. So, what inspired you to start the Positively Living podcast?
Thank you so much for asking that. So, essentially now, based on the discussion of me being a caregiver and my path into becoming a coach, what was behind all that. And it, I wanted to expand the conversation. And I knew that I had a voice and that I was expressing something different, a bit counterintuitive, but really important. I knew that I had a story that needed telling. I was so grateful to be a guest on podcasts like yours, and I knew that there was something there, but I kept thinking I would write a book. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, this is the year of the book. I'm like, nope, I'm starting a podcast. And why? Interestingly, it's the same kind of advice that I give my clients in terms of leaning into our strengths and our natural tendencies. Years ago, I was a voice talent, and being behind the mic is easy for me. I enjoy it. I enjoy having these conversations. You have inspired me with your questions and helping me remember certain aspects of my life and my journey today. There's something magical that this from having done this for so long.
Yeah.
And so that just it was a platform that made sense for me. And I realized by doing that, I could have these conversations that would go global and they would connect to so many more people. One of my words for the year right around that time was reach. I wanted to reach more. And yeah, and then from there, it was really about, doing less, living more, breathing easier, all of those things. And then I actually had a soft rebrand with the tagline shame-free productivity conversations, because it's
Ooh, I
so
like that.
important. Thank you. It's so important to me that we let go of the shame. We let go of the guilt. We lean into who we are, what we love, and understand that those are driving points to being our most productive as well as most satisfying selves. And yeah, so now I get to have conversations and also share my perspective in solo episodes, and also do it in a way where we're still honestly and transparently sharing our trauma and grief. It all goes together. We can't ignore it for the sake of being productive or being organized or achieving whatever we want to achieve. It all has to work together.
Yeah, our journeys are very similar in that aspect, not so much the starting. The
Mhm.
podcast started kind of more as a joke between my cousin and I, but what it has
That's
morphed
awesome.
into was the same concept of letting people know that they're not alone and
Yeah.
reaching out and giving people resources when they're really in the shit of it, which is why the name is in the podcast.
Absolutely. And that's the reality of it. It kind of irks me, and I think it's good advice to be like, if you want to change the world, find something that like bothers you and go after that, like whether it's in your industry or in your life. And for me, this whole hustle and grind and pushing and working harder and stuff like that, it's just a bunch of BS. I'm not saying don't go for things, don't have passion, don't achieve. I'm saying yes, but stop doing it in a way that's just going to lead to burnout and hurt yourself and others. Just stop. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I love that yours started as a joke, but now look at you. I mean,
Yeah.
this is amazing, and it's so important that we have these real conversations.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, and I agree with what you said too. There is a line, right? And I think that line gets very blurred of being a driven person and driving yourself into the ground, and we've kind of lost that line's kinda gotten buried in the sand.
Yeah, lost the plot, so to speak, right?
There you yeah, yeah, as a
Yeah.
book person, I love that. So, yes, we did, we lost the plot, but I do think we are turning a corner. You've probably seen it as well in your business that a lot of people are pulling out of corporate America, and they're starting to do their own thing, which is fantastic. The pandemic, like we talked about before we got on here, actually led a lot of people to make shifts whether they wanted to or not. They had to get comfortable being uncomfortable because they didn't have an option anymore. The
So
option
true.
got pulled out.
Yeah. And there's opportunity in that. And even if you're still in corporate America, there are still choices that you can make for your own life. And there's still ways that you can like just change the mindset about what it even means to be successful or to be productive. I've had clients who've come to me, and some of my favorites are actually so primarily women will come to me, and I think that's because I, there's, I guess, a tendency or, they're drawn toward the, "Could someone please show me some compassion because I'm juggling so much?" But
Mhm.
there are also men who've come to me who are, family men who are caregivers who are like, "Okay, I'm in, like, corporate America, I'm in bro marketing, I'm in all of this stuff, and yeah, okay, I'm technically successful, but I'm missing time with my family. I'm missing something. What am I missing?" And that's the people that come to me, where the people who are like, "I have a chronic illness or I have ADHD, and everyone else tells me to do it this way because that's productivity advice," air quotes everywhere. And then I say, "No, there's a different way. Let's talk."
There's a different way. Yeah, let's do that. Well, and since we touched on burnout, and I do love asking this question
Yeah.
for people that maybe are struggling with burnout or just feeling l- totally just overwhelmed, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would say, welcome to the club. You are not alone. And I would say, I think two big things come to mind, and this is from my own research, from what I've done with the podcast, from what I've dealt with myself, is that one is to start with being gentle with yourself and figuring out what your needs are. I've learned so much that we need to connect to our own nervous systems and find that safety again. And sometimes you can't get to the other part of it where it's like, "Oh, let me have a more reasonable schedule and a to-do list that's effective," and all the other things that I do work, with clients, and help them through. But first and foremost, you have to take care of you. And sometimes it's even more than self-care. It's getting your nervous system back into a place where it feels safe, like it can do that. So I guess that physical side, the mental side, maybe it is therapy. I've had people who've come to me like, "I'm not productive. I need your help." I'm like, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I want therapy for everyone. I think it's the most incredible thing. But it was like, "No,
Agreed.
you don't have a productivity issue. You have so much more that's deep inside you that needs healing, and that's a therapy thing." And then I would be happy to help you build from there.
Yeah.
So
And And I'm sure there are people out there right now going, Elisa, how do I connect with my nervous system?
Okay, so yes, I do have some episodes about that. Yes, there's a lot of different ways. There's somatic healing. There's we talked about the stuff with positive psychology when you start to meditate and you start to you're actually manipulating your gray matter in your mind. When you deep breathe, when you ground, you walk out. You literally go outside and ground. When you look outside at the green, when you do forest bathing, like I know some of it sounds woo woo, but some of it's very practical. Honestly, you can do a nervous system reset by doing a very simple breathing. I mean, there's things like box breathing and the SEALs do it, but I'll give you the quickest and simplest one, which is you inhale through your nose, you exhale through your mouth, and you make sure that your exhale is a little longer. And when you do that, so if you inhale and you inhale longer and then exhale, that's an energizing breath. When you inhale but you exhale longer, that's a calming breath.
There we go.
There's very simple things, but practicing them and understanding that that's what you need, and you need that calm, paying attention to what triggers you. I need far more quiet and far more distraction and a cleaner environment now than I ever did because I've been through some stuff.
Yeah. And your nervous system is like, we are not doing that anymore, Lisa. We're not going back. No, thank you.
That is correct. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, that is correct. You get 1,000 bonus points for that. And then the second part of it, which kind of ties into what I just said, at least for me, is I really believe in decluttering, in whole life decluttering. And what I mean by that is we have so much piled on us. Information coming in, tasks we think we need to do, stuff we've crammed on our calendars, closets that are overflowing, physical, mental, emotional, digital. The more you can step back from it, create boundaries, simplify, the better off you'll be. And so much of that will tie into calming your nervous system, reducing your stress response, helping you focus better.
All great things. And I love that you gave something that's nice and simple because I think some people do get intimidated by these types of things. So I love that you give a nice, simple thing just for somebody who maybe was like, holy crap.
Right. Like, as a matter of fact, go clean out your junk drawer or clean out a closet. Cause I know you know that feeling where you go to clean it out and you walk by later and you're like, hey, and then you go to open it on purpose just to look at it. Like that feeling, that's what I'm talking about. So it really is that simple. And that's why it works.
Fabulous. I love it. Lisa, do you have any final words of advice or anything you'd like to leave my listeners with before we say goodbye for the evening?
Let's go with one of my favorite quotes ever, because when we're dealing with stuff and it's really difficult, or we're trying to make changes, or we're trying to be better, or whatever it is that we're trying to do, because life is lifing us. Sophia Bush says that you're allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously.
I
And I
love
love
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's essentially the same concept of, two things can be true at once, but said way more beautifully.
Yeah, it's a very both and kind of statement, and I love it. Yeah, exactly. So that go ahead and strive for better, make adjustments, try something we talked about today. I'm cheering you on, but at the same time, you're also brilliant exactly as you are.
And for anybody who wants to get in touch with you, Lisa, how can they do so?
Thank you for asking. Positivelyproductive.com is my main hub, so you can find everything there. You are listening to a podcast right now, so on the very same player, you could pop over and check out Positively Living, Shame-Free Productivity Conversations, and I'd be honored to have you over there. And if you just want to act like a weirdo and laugh at me being ridiculous and also see random updates and just experiences with life, then come on over to Instagram, positively_Lisa. I love to play there.
Well, I'm going to have to go follow you as soon as we get off of here, Lisa.
Look for my reels because they're ridiculous.
I am a huge fan of ridiculous reels, so I will absolutely be doing that.
and we're fellow book lovers too, so we'll be talking about that as well, obvi.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Rietta. It's really been my pleasure.
And this is how to deal when the shit gets real, guys. I will see you all next episode.